Check it out,
Hello, everybody. My name is Claude, and I help make the film that you're about to see, CointelPro 101. I feel very honored to be able to join you via Skype today. It's amazing how this technology can work and bring us together. I wanted to mention something very quickly about why we made the film CointelPro. You'll see afterwards that it really tries to cover a lot of information. We want to use the film to unmask the criminality of the US government. It's true that people recognize it fairly readily in terms of what the US does around the world, everything from drone warfare to maintaining the prison in Guantanamo. But what ends up being fairly hidden is the way in which the US government attacks movements that are internal to the United States, particularly those that are, in the Black and brown communities that attempt to really transform some of the power relations that exist and that are demanding a more just and humane type of world. It's interesting that the US government would feel the most threatened internally by these movements for human rights. But because of the US history, the way that it was founded through European expansion and colonialism, through genocide against indigenous people, through slavery, through geographic expansion, stealing parts of Mexico, maintaining colonies in places like Puerto Rico, that this is a structural part of what the United States is, not just historically, but today as well. So the film tries to deal with some of this and tries to unmask the realities for people around the world about how this country, the United States, continues to function and denies the existence even of political prisoners. There are many people, over 100 people, who continue to be locked up in this country for decades, who are the surviving leaders of the movements of the 60s and 70s. And they have no intention of letting any of these people out. Mind you, this is in the context of the largest imprisonment rate in the history of humanity. There are close to 2.4 million people locked up in the prisons of the United States. This is an unprecedented rate of imprisonment. And of those 2.4 million, in any given day, there are over 80,000 people locked up in total isolation, prolonged isolation, meaning a form of torture, really, where people are denied any kind of human contact for very, very long periods of time. Guantanamo is just at the surface, and in some ways, an important way for people to see how the US criminalization of many times innocent people or people that in Guantanamo are refused even charges or trial, how that extends throughout the prison systems in the United States. Guantanamo, rather than being an anomaly or an aberrant kind of situation, is actually fairly normalized in the prisons in the United States. So among the hundreds of political prisoners in the United States, you're probably well aware of Mumia Abu-Jamal. It was a great victory to finally get him off of death through many, many years of work in order to accomplish that. And yet he still remains in prison, so there's much work yet to be done. Mumia is one of the well-known political prisoners, but much like him, there are so many others who are also members of the Black Panther Party, who are members of the American Indian movement, who were parts of the Puerto Rican independence struggle, who are parts of the Chicano movement, and who are parts of North American movements, both that functioned in solidarity with a lot of these struggles back in the 60s and 70s that remain imprisoned, but also newer activists who've been locked up because of their commitment to fighting for animal rights or environmental justice in the United States. So these are the reasons why we, make films like CointelPro 101. And if you go to our website at freedomarchives.org, you can see that we've done a number of films about other political prisoners, about imprisonment, and more generally about a level of political resistance to this violence and criminality of the US. So having said that, we're glad that you're going to see this film. And if our plans work well, I'll join you afterwards so that we can all be part of a conversation about the issues raised in it. For now, thank you very much for coming tonight. And let's take a look at the film. And thank you so much for taking out the time to view CointelPro 101.
Check it out, so check.